Good morning, everybody, and happy Saturday. So this week at the store, Sarah and Vicki have been out at Baby Lock training, and Sheila and I have been here in the store, and we have been playing so much, making some samples for the new store and playing with a few different techniques. Today I want to show you about embossed embroidery. I've got the Baby Lock array behind me, and we have been absolutely obsessed with embossed embroidery lately. We've made a few different things, and this morning we're going to be stitching on a little terry cloth towel, and I'll show you how I've prepared it and what kind of stabilizer and everything I'm using. But before we do that, I want to show you a few things that we are working on for the new location, some decorations that we're going to be putting up when we get fully moved. And some of this is some designs from Baby Lock that we are going to be putting up to show the repair department. So what we're going to do with these is put these onto some canvas boards and tuck the fabric around so that the embroidery really pops. And so this one is going to be on the door of the repair department. Super fun. And we used a little bit of variegated Madeira rayon thread. I've got some of it here in the store. We are experimenting with this to see if we like it. So stop by because I do have some of it for sale. And this is one where you don't really want to use it at full speed. Rayon's not quite as strong as polyester, but it is gorgeous. And if you take a look at how this table turned out, the tabletop, and then the colors in the toolboxes and everything, it's such a gorgeous variation of, you know, instead of just using a solid, it gives a lot of depth there. So we're really excited to play with this more. You're going to see this around the store a little bit more. And so if you come in and get some, we'd really like your feedback. We'd like to hear how you feel about this type of thread. So this is one of them. And then this next one, we're also going to put on the door of the repair room. And I don't know that Derek has seen this yet. So you all are getting a good preview. So this one's also going to go on canvas, and we're going to hang it on the door. And then this will be for Derek, our wonderful repair technician. So this will let everybody know who he is and that he is our technician extraordinaire. And we also use some of the Madeira variegated thread there in the tools a little bit. The orange is what is that variegation. And yeah, it was super fun to work with. We slowed the machine down just a little bit and didn't have any issues with it, and it turned out beautifully. So what we're going to be doing this morning is I'm going to be stitching out an embossed design. Here's some examples of what that looks like. So this is one that we did a little while ago. I got this background design, the knockdown stitches from Etsy, and then this H is just a built-in font in one of the machines. And here is another one that we did lately. This is on a little girl's shirt, and then we've got the butterfly there. For this one, we used a water-soluble topper, and so it just rinsed away, and then you're left with the knockdown stitches and then the puff there to define the butterfly. So what we're doing, what I've got hooped up this morning, I've got a Urban Threads design here on the machine, and it's just a simple key. And I have my towel and everything ready to stitch. So this one I've marked with a friction pin where my center point of the design is going to be. And I'm using a stick tear away on the back on my magnetic snap frame. For smaller projects like this that aren't super heavy, this is a perfect application. So the stick tear away, if you haven't used that, it's like when you get it off the roll, the bottom layer is going to be your sticky part, and then the top layer is what you peel off, and it kind of feels like wax paper. And once you peel that top layer off, then you're left with the sticky stabilizer underneath, and then that's tacky, and that's going to hold my towel down. So I'm gonna hoop this in the machine a little bit backwards. So I'm actually gonna have it upside down, where that's the bottom and this is the top, and it's gonna be hanging off the machine like this. On the array, one of the good things that we can do is line this up exactly how we want to using the crosshairs that the machine has built in. So even if I hoop it just a little bit crooked, it's gonna mitigate that for me. So I'm gonna show you what I'm doing here on the screen. So I'm gonna tell the machine exactly where my crosshair is and then the direction that I'm stitching in. I'm gonna try and get you as close as I can. So I'm gonna tell it where the middle is, and then I'm gonna tell it where the bottom of the design is. So when I get here to the middle, I'm gonna raise you up so that you can see this a little bit better and probably turn the camera around. So here's what it looks like on my hoop. And then this is what it looks like on my screen. So right now it's asking me to move my crosshair to match up with the crosshair that I drew. So I need to match up the red crosshair from the machine with the crosshair that I drew with the friction pin. So I'm going to use the arrow tools that I have on the screen of the array to move that red crosshair. And I have to say, I think I lined that up pretty good, eyeballing it on just hooping it. But the next thing that I have to do is tell it which direction the design is going to go down. And since I have it upside down, this is going to be more important than just lining it up. So on the array, I'm going to click the next button, and then I'm going to let it know which direction is going down using the same move tools that I have here on my screen and the crosshair that I have here, the red crosshair that the machine is giving me. So I'm going to move this down a little bit. And that black mark might be a little bit hard to see on this green towel, but I'm just going to shift it over just a bit because that's pretty well in line. Okay, so when I set this on my screen, what's going to happen is it's going to flip it around for me so I can be confident that that's going to be the right orientation once I stitch it out in my hoop. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a basting stitch. Now the reason that I'm doing that is we need to add a topper to this design. So what the topper is going to do for my stitch out, it's basically going to keep my stitches really visible and sharp. Whenever you're working with a textured fabric like a terry cloth, fleece, anything with a big puff or a nice fluffy texture, the stitches without a topper can tend to get lost there in the texture. So this one in particular, you can see it looks really nice and crisp and clear around here between where those stitches are. And then these stitches look really nice. If I didn't have a topper on this, then they would basically sink into the terry cloth and we wouldn't see them. So typically for embossed embroidery, what you're gonna do is try to match the color of the fabric that you're stitching on with your thread. So I've got a green on here, like a sage green, that's gonna match my towel. And I'm going to lay my topper over the hoop. And then I'm gonna add that basting stitch. So that added a nice little box, and that's gonna hold my topper down as everything stitches out. So when I'm ready to stitch, I'm gonna let it know, and I'm going to change all of this to number 5, which is the needle that I have my sage green on. And then when I'm ready, I'm just gonna touch the start button. And I'm gonna hold this in place for just a little bit, making sure to keep my fingers away from the needles. And so I'm gonna show you what this looks like here. So even my basting stitch, I can see it pretty clearly. And then as this gets going, we're gonna see those knockdown stitches first. And you can see how clear those stitches are on top of the copper. So we'll let that stitch out for a couple minutes. It's about a 6-minute stitch out, which is actually a pretty short amount of time for an embossed stitch. Typically your embossed designs are going to be a little bit longer of a stitch out because they do have that knockdown stitch. And that's going to be literally knocking down the stitches of whatever textured project you're working on. This works really well on some poofy hats also. So this design that we're working with here, this is from Urban Threads. They have a lot of really fun embossed designs. That's where the butterfly came from on our pink shirt. And I'm going to show you all those again. So this butterfly is also, that's an Urban Threads design. And then this is one that we just found from Etsy with the font from the machine. So with IQ Designer, you can also build your own knockdown stitches if you have the Baby Lock Solaris or the Altair or the Meridian or the Venture. You can build your own knockdown stitches and create your own embossed embroidery. One of the other options that you can do is you can use a press away topping. So depending on what you're working with, you can use the press away instead of the water soluble. If it is a project that is going to take a water soluble, if it's something that's going to get wet in general, I prefer to use the water soluble. I think it's a little bit easier to get out of the project afterwards. And you'll see once this is done, as we start to take away all of the water soluble topping, it does come out pretty easily once everything is done stitching. And let me show you, let me give you a little update. So we're about 3 minutes in, about halfway through, and this is what it's looking like. Now once I'm done, what we'll do is take out the basting stitch, take the topper off, and then I'm going to iron that friction mark away where you can see my crosshair underneath. So the Baby Lock array makes this project really easy. Between being able to line it up with the crosshair, I can not have to worry about how accurately I'm hooping it, and it's going to help me make sure that everything's lined up appropriately. And then this stitch is at 1,000 stitches per minute, so it's going to go pretty quickly through my design. And we've got about 2 minutes left on that. So if you're new to Thomas Sewing Center, I want to let you all know that we are going to be moving to a new location here in a couple, well, actually in about a month or so. We are working on getting all of the carpeting and the paint and the inside all ready for the grand opening. And we will be there by the end of July. So the grand opening, the big celebration, the plan is to have that on July 27th. The new address is 305 Codell Drive. So it's right at the corner of Woodhill and Codell. And when you get there, it's a big orange building, so you can't miss it. You're going to be able to see it right off. And it's a lot bigger of a space than what we have now. So we're going to have a much larger classroom, a lot more room for some new goodies and maybe some new fabric. So we will be there pretty soon. and you're gonna see a lot of these samples hanging up in the new shop. Okay, so we are just about done. The stitches look super crisp. All right, there we go. Let me get her off the machine and we will start getting all that topper off so you can see exactly what that's gonna look like. So this is what it looks like finished before I take the basting stitch or the topper off. So I'm gonna take a seam ripper to the back and get my basting stitch out. And with that basting stitch, it's just a super long stitch that's gonna hold down my topper in one place so it doesn't get folded over on top of itself. So now once that's out, and I can pull this a bit and take away all the excess topper. Whenever, even if you have a water soluble backing or topper, it is a really good idea to get as much off of the project before you dunk it in water as possible. That way you don't have to contend with, or that way you contend with a little bit less of the water soluble stuff before you start taking it off. Because it can get a little bit sticky and a little bit gooey. I think the first water soluble project I did, I just took it as it was and dunked it, and that was a mess. Don't do that. Tried to peel a lot of it away. Okay, so I still have it attached to the sticky stabilizer, so I'm just gonna take this and gently rip it off. And then I'm gonna be left with kind of a keyhole shaped area in my stabilizer. And so this is what this looks like now. I'm gonna take a little bit of water and get the rest of the topper off, and then I'm gonna take the iron to it and get my friction pin off. But once everything is said and done, you have a beautiful towel with some personalization and a nice embossed key. So you can take a little bit of, you can take a seam ripper and get some of this off here where you can tell that the topper is still in there. And then for the rest of those little bits, you can take a little bit of water and dab it on there, and it's gonna come right off. So that is how you do embossed embroidery. It's super easy. It's not as difficult as it looks. As long as you have the right tools and the right toppers, everything is gonna go swimmingly. And if you have a machine like this where it's gonna make it super easy to make sure that everything's lined up appropriately, makes it even easier. So guys, thank you for joining me this Saturday morning. If you have any questions or comments or wanna say hello, drop a comment, and we'll see you soon.